Hi guys, welcome back to the Differently More podcast, or welcome if it's your first time here. I am super glad, super grateful, and honestly honored that you guys are choosing to tune in to this podcast specifically. And genuinely, you guys chose a very special and magical episode to tune into, because I know you've read the title. I know that you've seen the cute little photos on the thumbnail. But hear my voice, hear my emotion in my voice. I was upgraded in business class on a long haul flight for free. I didn't pay a cent, I didn't pay a penny, and it was not some sort of random thing. I was actively manifesting this, and I used techniques that I've learned over time. And I was like, you know what, let's just do this little experiment and see if this thing will happen. And it did, and it blew my mind. And because it blew my mind, I want to share it with you. And I want to share with you the techniques that I've used, what you can apply to your own life. And yeah, and I've literally reorganized my content calendar. This was not supposed to be the podcast that was going to go up today, but I've reorganized it because I want to give you the information as fresh and as crisp from a memory as possible. I don't want to delay it because this happened yesterday and I don't want to film this later than it has to. So this is what you're gonna hear about today, and it is such a beautiful, magical story, and there's a lot of things to be shared with you guys. So let's get into it. But before we do that, I want to just introduce myself quickly for people that don't know who I am. I'm Orlane, I'm French, but I grew up most of my life in Singapore, and I'm currently in the UK as a medical student, but I'm currently also taking a year out to do a master's degree in research. So a little bit complex, but if you take out all of that, I love self-development so much. I love learning things that can make my life better, more efficient, and help me become a better version of myself so that I can more beautifully morph into my dream version of me that has the dream life, right? My dream life. And while I do that, I bring you guys along with me. I share with you what it is that I learn, what it is that I'm learning, because I think everything is better when it's shared. And I don't want to keep things, I don't want to gatekeep things. I want to share things with you guys and help you also get to that dream version of you that has their dream life as well. But I'm also a singer. I don't know if you knew that for the people that watch me for a while, but I'm also a singer. And I've recently started a new YouTube channel. It's called Orlane, which is where I post my covers as well as behind the scenes videos that explain kind of helping you make sense of life through music. Through the songs that I sing. And it's a really beautiful, magical, creative place. So if you want to connect with me in a different way, there's also that channel. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok, and I leave all the links down below. But it's time to get into the actual crunchy, beautiful bit of this podcast. I'm first going to explain the story, the behind the scenes kind of exclusive content as to what happened yesterday. But if you're not here for that, if you don't want to listen to that, that's completely fine. I get it. If you're just just give me the tips, give me the actionable steps, I can also do that. But you're going to have to skip to whatever number I put on screen, or if I'm going to put in the description as well. So you can just skip to that bit if that's what you want. But for the people that want to hear the behind the scenes story, that want to have all the juicy bits of what it is that happened, we're getting into it now. So this whole story starts on the 31st of December 2023. So New Year's Eve day. That's when me and my family, we were flying back to Singapore, and we were flying back to Singapore in business class. And already I was super grateful. I love flying business class. I don't know anybody that doesn't, but it's super good. You feel so luxurious. It's just such an expansive experience. It's amazing. And so I really loved that. And I remember feeling trying to really sit in my seat and absorb everything that was around me. Really remember how the luxurious felt within my body. How abundant I felt. I really tried to really sink into that feeling while I was in there, because it's just a beautiful experience, and I just love it so much. And so I was like, you know what, for once I'm gonna really sit with myself and really appreciate the beauty that I have, and really be super grateful for this experience that I get to have on New Year's Eve, and going into New Year's, because I did New Year's in the plane. Literally, it was very fun. Well, it was just Happy New Year in the plane while we were landing. Anyways, we're getting sidetracked. So we landed in Singapore, and my flight back to the UK was Singapore to Dubai back to the UK. And it was, first stretch was going to be premium economy, and then the next stretch was supposed to be economy, which obviously I was really grateful for. I get to travel, so I was like, cool. But I had this little idea in my head that was like, hey, Orlane, what if we tried to put in place our manifestation tools and techniques that we've learned over time, and try to manifest a free upgrade from economy to business on your flight from Dubai back to the UK. And I'm not going to lie, my ego, my rational brain, because again, I'm a medical student, I'm like literally in a master's about science, very rational. My ego was like, Orlane, this cannot happen. This never happens. This has never happened to you before. You travel a lot and this has never happened in your life. Why would it happen now? You're being delirious, you're being delusional. Loss, this is never going to happen. But I was able to quieten that voice. And I was like, well, you know what? We'll see if this is something that I actually want to do. So then I decided that this was something that I wanted to actually manifest. So I did a bunch of tools and tricks and everything that I'm going to share with you in a bit, but I did all of that. Shared it with my mum. My mum was like, Orlane, you're being ridiculous. This is never going to happen. You're going to have to either pay or use your miles. Tell my brother. He's like, lol, like this is never going to happen. You're being delusional. La 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 la. Fast forward to the day that I left, which was Friday evening, and I was super, super sad, guys. Leaving your family. I don't know if you're listening to this that don't live with your family and are living very far away, I'm sure you can get like the pain, the horrible feeling of just having to be separated again after you've been so comfortable in your own space with your parents, with your family, in your environment, and then you have to leave again. So I was really feeling very, very sad. But at this point, I had completely forgotten that this sort of like business thing was a thing that I was trying to manifest. I was too busy being sad and being stressed. And like, I'm also like a bit of an anxious flyer. So I was like, I'm going to have to fly on my own. And what if there's turbulence? I was just a bit stressed and like sad and all that jazz. So not in the most abundant, happy, high vibe state at all. Pretty much the opposite. Tears on my face, like horrific. And then so I get on the first flight and it's like the premium economy one, which I thought was like really, really nice. But there was so much turbulence. Like I was so stressed. There was so much turbulence. It took me so long to regulate, even my meditations, my tapping, everything. Like nothing felt like it was properly working. It took me maybe over an hour to regulate. And that's super long when it usually takes like 15 minutes. But anyways, I land in Dubai. And at this point, again, the business situation is not on my mind. All I'm like, I want to get back to the UK. First flight is done, another 8 hours, and then you can rest, you can just go to bed, like you're going to be back at home, sort your stuff, you have a lot of things to do, get ready for the semester kind of thing. And so I land, I go get some gummy bears, I'm like, okay, I'm going to make this fun, I'm going to be in economy, I'm going to see like how the economy like looks in this like A380 Emirates flight, like we're going to see what it looks like. I've never been in like economy in Emirates, so let's see. So at least I can like, I was like, at least I would have done all the different like cabin, like as an economy, premium economy, and business on the same like airplane, so we can see like compare and contrast, So I was like excited for that, genuinely. And so I'm like queuing. I get to like the boarding thing, and I'm queuing for getting into the plane. And in Dubai, like when they look at your passport to let you in the plane, they don't do it like manually. They do it like with a machine. So put my passport in the machine, it doesn't work. I'm like, ooh, what's happening, guys? Like, what's this thing? Like, why is my passport not working? It's also 2 a.m., 6 a.m., 5 a.m. Singapore time. So I'm shattered. I've slept like 2 hours. I'm like, why is it not working? I call the guy. I'm like, hey, like my passport's not working. Can you help me? He like looks at it. He's like, why is it not working? It's weird. So he's like, oh, maybe they've changed your seat. Go see this guy. So at this point, I'm like, oh, they might have changed my seat, but I'm not thinking they've upgraded me, like at all. No part of my being thought they upgraded me. I was just like, oh, they changed my seat from like 50F to like 51D. I was like, oh, they must have changed my seat and that's it. No big deal. So I go to this place. He's like, he looks at me. He takes my boarding pass dramatically. When I say dramatically, like breaks it in half. I'm like, dude, you don't have to be this dramatic. It's 2 a.m. You can be a little less dramatic. Also, this man doesn't really speak to me. He's just dramatically breaking my boarding pass. I'm like, okay, clearly they're changing my seat. And then he like prints this new boarding pass. He looks at my passport. He's like, okay, all good. Gives me my passport. And he's like, hey, like, he just gives it to me. He's like, yeah, you've been upgraded to business. But at this point, like I was already like walking past him while he gives me my passport. The guy behind me was already coming in. So it's not like he was like, hey, like I have a good news for you. Like you've been upgraded to business. Like, I hope you're happy about this. No, he just was like, yeah, you've been upgraded to business, and just gives me my passport. At this point, I'm unsure if I've heard that correctly. Like my whole being, when I told you I was tired, I was a bit cranky. My whole being was like, what? Was I upgraded to business? This actually happened? Because at this point, it's like my brain remembered that this was something that was actively manifesting. Like genuinely no part of me was actually thought about it actively. Like, oh, this is the time to see if this manifestation is going to come to life. Because I was too busy feeling other feelings and being sad and all that jazz. that my brain was like, oh my God, this is something we've asked for and it's here. But also I didn't believe that it was. So like, I was so exhausted. I was like, is it really written business on this boarding pass? I'm not too sure. Like, I was so freaking confused, like genuinely so freaking confused. And then I was calling my parents immediately. I was like, I don't care if it's 5 a.m. I'm going to call them and let them know that I manifested this thing. And I want to tell my brother, tell you, I told you that I was going to do this and you didn't believe in me. And look at this. Who's in business now? Whatever. Anyway, so that's the story. I basically got into business. I don't know why. I don't know what happened. I have no explanation. Literally, I don't know anything about the how this whole thing happened. But all I know is that I was sat in business class on that Emirates flight and feeling so much gratitude, but also such an empowering feeling of like, whoa, I asked for this and this thing has worked. And so if this has worked for upgrading myself to business class for free, surely this can work for bigger things in my life, bigger dreams, bigger aspirations. And so that's the new thing where I'm like, oh, wow, okay, this thing has worked. And so clearly this thing is powerful and clearly this thing can do things for me. What if I just believe and really apply these things to other areas of my life? There is no reason, literally no reason why it could not happen in other areas of my life. There's no reason why I couldn't like manifest like meeting my person, or manifest having beautiful friendships, or manifest like having this life that I dream of. There is no reason why that would not happen, knowing that I've manifested literally getting upgraded to business class for free. It's just mind-blowing to me. And I've traveled a lot, guys. Like, I've traveled a lot. And this has never happened to me. Like, never. Like, at all. And the moment I asked for it and actively did this, it happened. Some part of me really cannot take out the bit that, like, this is not a coincidence. This is not some sort of, like, oh, it was just a random. Like, no, this is something that I've asked for and it happened. And so I'm choosing to believe that this was really a proof that really kind of like a gift to prove to me that manifesting works, and that you can, like, those things really, really work. But I think they worked because I used a few different techniques, and I'm going to talk about these techniques now. So now let's get into the more practical bit of this video, which is explaining kind of like the steps that I followed, what I was able to observe that I've done to be able to manifest this. So the first thing I want to tell you guys is it's not because you're going to follow these steps and you start implementing these steps tomorrow that your manifestation will come to life tomorrow, right? And it doesn't mean that if I re-implement these steps that next time I fly, I'm going to get upgraded again. I don't know that for sure. I can't promise you that this is something that's going to happen, but I can tell you that these are the steps that I've done, that have allowed me to be able to really honestly effortlessly manifest this thing. This was not a process that felt difficult, that felt challenging, that felt like filled with resistance. This was a very beautiful, simple thing that I did like a few times, and then it just happened and it just worked, which kind of gives me the idea that sometimes when we're trying to manifest bigger things, because obviously manifesting a flight on, first class upgrade, a business class upgrade on a flight is a big thing, but it's not as big as like manifesting your dream relationship, or manifesting your dream circle of friends, or manifesting your dream job. It's not the same caliber, and it's not attached to the same sort of feelings, right? If you don't get the upgrade, you're fine. You're like, well, I'll just fly an economy and it's going to be okay. But sometimes you attach to, not getting your dream relationship, like, oh, I'm just going to be really weird and I'm never going to be fine. And so you attach this sort of like neediness energy to it, to bigger manifestations, myself included. I promise you, myself included. You like attach this sort of like sense of neediness of like, if I don't get this, then I'm never going to be happy, or I'm never going to feel fulfilled, I'm never going to feel complete, or like I'm just going to feel like a failure, or whatever narrative you choose to bring to this thing. Whenever you try to manifest bigger things, you bring a lot of the time sort of like neediness energy. But because there was no neediness at all in this, I think it was a lot easier, a lot more effortless to manifest this thing. But again, it gives me a lot of indications as to what state you need to be able to effortlessly manifest. And sometimes it's getting into that state that's the hardest thing. But the first thing that I did was that I knew exactly what it was that I wanted. And I was very, very specific as to what it was that I wanted, meaning that I was like, I want to get upgraded to business class on my second flight back to the UK for free. So it was very, very clear, very, very specific. And when I say very clear, very specific, I don't necessarily mean that you need to, like, if you're manifesting your dream relationship, let's say, you don't have to be super specific as to what this person's going to look like, how tall, like what eyes they're going to have, like not like that, but you have to be specific as to what it is you're looking for to feeling in this relationship, for example, or what it is that you're looking for to be able to do in this relationship. So there's still a level of specificity that needs to be there, and you need to feel fully like safe in like, this is what it is that I want, right? When I was saying I want to be in business class, I felt so safe. I felt so like there was no part of me that was refusing or felt like, oh, if I get this, I'm going to lose something. I was just like, no, this is great. Like, I want to do that. Which brings me to my second point, is that this manifestation, like this thing that I was trying to bring into my life, felt really, really safe in my body. No part of me felt like, maybe I'm not ready for this yet. If I get upgraded to business class, what are people going to think? So it was one of those things that, like, I knew exactly what I wanted. I was very, very specific with what I wanted, but also it felt safe in my body to want this thing. And sometimes people try to manifest big things, a dream relationship, a dream job, a dream house, a kid, but this dream that they have, this thing that they want to bring into their life, I'm not doubting that that's something that you want. I'm sure you do, but your body doesn't feel safe holding that thing. That your body doesn't feel safe having that come into your life. So if your body doesn't feel safe with this thing that could be coming into your life, your body's not going to allow you to bring it into your life, if that makes sense. It's almost as if like there's a metaphorical wall around you that's preventing you from getting to what you want because you don't feel safe. The idea of actually having this in your real life doesn't feel safe, and so it's not coming into your life. And I think that was a beautiful story that I get to now tell people, is because manifesting this felt so easy. It felt so safe. It felt so natural and so effortless. And it came so fast, right? And yeah, there was no fear at all in my body when I was like, this is something that I want. Whereas if I say like, oh, I want to, manifest my dream relationship, or meet my husband, or do whatever it is, when I say these things, there's a level of unsafety that comes up with it. There's a level of fear. There's a level of like negative, quote unquote, negative emotions that come up that did not come up at all with wanting to manifest this business thing. And so I think that's something that we can take away with us, is that for us to manifest effortlessly, the fear of manifesting that thing, the fear of having this in our life has to be gone, has to be dissolved. And so if you have something come up in you that tells you, I feel a little bit fearful, I feel a little bit scared bringing this in, then that might be your thing to tell you, hey, there's a bit of work to do here to dissolve this fear before I can actually move on to the next step, what I'm going to talk about in a second, to properly bring this into my life. So the other thing that I think happened as well in this whole process was that because I was able to, go into the business flight before, right? The one that brought me to Singapore. And I was really, really present and really looked around everywhere and really absorbed this whole experience. I visualized myself in that flight going back home in the exact same environment, and I could really feel myself being sat on that chair because I knew exactly what the environment looked like. So it was very easy for me to put myself in that environment and to visualize really, really, really specifically what it would look like and what it would feel like, because I had felt that before. And so I think that's also a powerful tool of manifestation as well, is that if you're able to visualize very specifically, very precisely what it is that you want, it's going to allow you to really put yourself into that. And your brain cannot know what is true from what is not true when you're visualizing something. So I was really visualizing myself in that plane, at that seat, looking around, really visualizing how that experience felt in my body, how I would feel when they served me my food, because I hadn't really experienced that before. And so it was very, very easy to visualize that. And so now when I'm kind of thinking about this, I'm thinking, well, with other things that I want in my life, actually, I'm going to have to be able to put myself in situations where I can more effortlessly visualize what something could be. So let's say you want to manifest your dream relationship. Maybe reading books about secure, healthy relationships can really help you understand what that looks like, and then it's easier to visualize what a healthy and secure relationship looks like. Or maybe you have people in your life that have a relationship or a type of relationship that you would want to have. So maybe when you spend time with them, really observe the situation, really absorb the situation and understand how it happens. And when you can visualize, you can put yourself in a similar situation, in a similar scenario, because now it's much more specific as to what you're telling your brain. Because obviously it's good to be able to visualize, and it's a very powerful, beautiful technique to use. But if you're visualizing something that's not very powerful or something that's not very useful, it's going to be very difficult to actually, use that as a powerful manifestation tool, right? And so sometimes having a bit more data, sometimes doing a bit more of like a research about how you want to feel, how this thing that you're trying to bring into your life is going to feel and look like, can really help you to visualize a lot better. The better you can visualize, I think, the better you can really bring something into your life. Because genuinely, when I was visualizing this, it was so specific. I could really see every single thing. Whereas other things that I'm trying to bring into my life, when I visualize them, it's a lot blurrier. It's not as specific as this was, which makes me think that maybe if I get to a point where I can be a lot more specific with other types of visualizations for other things that I'm trying to bring into my life, then it can allow me to actually bring those things faster, because now I know exactly what I want. I know exactly what I'm like looking to feel and stuff like that. So that was the third thing. So the first one was to like know what it is that you want. Make sure that this is something that feels properly safe in your body. And the third thing was to spend time visualizing, but like visualizing properly, if that makes sense, with like specifics and really being able to sink into that moment with all the specifics around you onto like what you can see, but also what you can feel. The fourth thing that also happened, and I know people talk about this all the time, but I was so detached from the outcome. So freaking detached from the outcome, because I was like, you know what? If I get to manifest this thing, it's great, it's cool, I'll be so grateful, I'll be so happy. But if I don't, it's also so cool because it's fine. I'll get to go in economy. I'll sit in the economy flight. I'll be able to see what the economy cabin in Emirates looks like. I'll be able to compare with other airlines. And also I'll get home safely. It's literally not that big of a difference to my life. And it'll be, obviously, being in business will be the cherry on top, but being in the plane is already really good, and I'm already really grateful. And so the detachment that I felt from this outcome felt so like, you know what, this is something that I want, and I really do want it, but if it doesn't come, it's okay. And if it doesn't come today or tomorrow, it's also fine. And that's a level of detachment that I don't really feel with other things, bigger things that I'm trying to manifest, where I feel like it's almost sometimes I have this feeling that if I detach myself from the outcome, then the thing's not going to come. So I'm like obsessive over it. I'm like, no, this has to happen in this way and la 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 la. But actually with this, I was so detached from the outcome. It's almost as if like the universe or God or whatever had space to create this thing and bring it into my life. Because literally, I told you in the story, like I was not thinking about this when it happened. I was not surprised when it happened because it's something that I've wanted for a while and something that was manifesting, but I was surprised that it happened. I was surprised that it happened in that way. But when it did happen, I was all like, oh my God, this is such a beautiful thing. I'm so lucky today. I was like, no, this is something that I asked for. Asked for and you shall be given it, And I was like, oh my God, I did ask for this and I did get it, and it's so beautiful that it happened today. But I was able to be quite detached from the outcome when I'm not necessarily detached from other outcomes for other things that I'm trying to manifest. So I think that's something that also needs to be taken into account, the art of detachment and surrendering to the outcome. That was something that I did really beautifully in this process. I was really able to be detached, and I felt detached because I was fine with the other option. I was completely fine and completely happy with the other option, which makes me think that maybe sometimes let's say you're trying to manifest your dream relationship, are you truly, really happy with your life as a single person? And are you truly in love with this life that you are currently living? And if you're not, then there's an aspect of neediness, there's an aspect of obsessiveness attached to the thing that you're trying to manifest, which is your dream relationship. Because if you don't, then you have, quote unquote, to stay in the single life that you don't like that much, right? And so because there's no other option that you feel excited about, then you can't be detached, right? Because if there's only one thing that you're excited about, then you can't feel detached over the outcome. Whereas if you have multiple things that you're feeling excited about, the thing that you really want has a lot more space to come into your life. I really wanted to be in business. That was really something I wanted, but I was also equally happy and equally grateful to have a different experience and be in economy and make another experience a beautiful one as well. And so I think that's definitely a massive thing that I learned with this whole process. So let's see. Oh yeah, the fifth thing now, and I think that's the last thing that I did, is that I talked about this. I didn't keep it under wraps. I think a lot of the times with other manifestations that I'm trying to bring into my life, I keep them hidden. I don't talk about them because, again, I'm so attached to the outcome. I'm so kind of obsessive sometimes over them that it feels like if I talk about it and it doesn't happen, then I'm going to look dumb, right? And maybe sometimes there's also an added element of a bit more vulnerability attached to them. Whereas this one, I talked about it. I talked about it with my mom, with my brother, and they were both like saying like, oh, this is stupid, this is dumb. But because I felt so detached over the outcome, it didn't affect me. And I was like, well, I don't know, like it could happen. And if it does, it'll be really, really cool. And so I think that being able to hold the thing that you want in public with other people, and being able to hold as well their criticism, their judgment over what it is that you're trying to bring in, is also kind of signaling the strength that you have around this thing and how much you really wanted. You're not faltering. I never faltered. I never said, oh yeah, actually you're right, I shouldn't want this thing. I was like, well, I still want this thing. And it might still happen. You don't know. I don't know if it's going to happen, but you also don't know it's going to happen. So I'm not going to allow your doubts to come into my brain. I don't know if it's going to happen, but it could still happen. And so I stayed attached, and I stayed strong to my like idea and my manifestation of what it is that I wanted. And I didn't let other people's thoughts and judgments bleed into that, but also I was able to share those openly. And I think that that's something that was different, that I hadn't really done before, is to sharing what it is I wanted openly. And it reminds me as well that the other time that I shared something openly as to what it is I wanted in my life, that manifestation came through within a month. So maybe that's also a thing that should be talked about a bit more, is that when you talk about this with other people, then you're vulnerable and you open up yourself being like, this is something that I want now. Maybe it shows that like once you're able to hold your ground and still feel safe and comfortable and proud of what it is that you're trying to bring into your life, even after you've talked about it with somebody else that will have opinions and judgments or whatever, it's almost maybe like a signal of like, okay, like you're properly ready because you feel so safe with this thing. It doesn't matter what people are telling to you, and you feel so safe, you're so excited about it that you're able to talk about it with other people. You're not keeping it under closed wraps, under like closed doors, and being like, oh, this is like this really kind of cool thing that I want to do, but I don't want anybody to know about it until it happens. Well, it's like, well, you can't keep something so small, so like not to the world at all if you never like, and expect it to really show up if you're not even showing up for it, if that makes sense. At least that's something that at this point in time, I'm kind of slowly but surely realizing that it is an important thing to be able to, I think, talk about what it is that you want and feel so safe to talk about vulnerably what it is that you want to bring into your life, and yeah, take the criticism and be like, well, it's fine, I still want this thing, it's still going to happen for me, whatever you say. And then the other thing that I wanted to tell you, which is like the last thing, was that this whole process overall felt very simple. It felt very frictionless. There was no obsessiveness over it. It was just like literally a few times a day I would be like, oh, it would be really fun being in business. A few like times during when I was in Singapore, I like closed my eyes and I really visualized what it would be like to be in the cabin and business and all of that. And then I just moved on. I set the intention, I visualized it, I thought about it a few times, and that was it. I didn't do anything too big, too crazy, like spent like hours obsessing over it, like, you know, creating 1,000 vision boards and, you know, like tapping on it. No, it was simple. It was effortless. It felt safe. It felt comfortable. And then the moment I felt like, okay, I've set my intention, I've visualized this, I've tapped on this, I just let it go. I literally let it go. I was like, you know what? Universe, you can take care of the rest. I've done my bit. I've done my bit of the creation of this thing. You can take care of the rest. And then it did. The universe did take care of it, and I got to go in business, which I think a lot of these lessons that I'm sharing with you guys are really applicable. And, you know, you can really extrapolate those to your other manifestations that you're trying to bring into your life and kind of compare and contrast and see where you're not getting the same level of ease, of simplicity, of, you know, detachment, all of these things. And it's just showing you actually that when you're manifesting something, you have to be in a very specific state of feeling safe, being able to detach, and then, you know, just ease and flow. And if there's no flow and ease, it's much more difficult for something to come into your life. And yeah, that was just a very, very beautiful process. And I hope that kind of like the things that I've done have been able to help you on your own journey, and you have a few different things that you can take from that and extrapolate to your own life. I definitely know for sure that there's a lot that I'm trying to extrapolate to other manifestations, bigger things that I'm trying to bring in, but because there's still fear attached to it, because it's still difficult to detach from the outcome and surrender to the outcome and all that jazz, it means that it takes a bit longer. But that's not a problem, because again, sometimes we need the whole journey. Sometimes, you need to not be able to surrender for a while, not be able to let go, not being a bit obsessive over it, so you can learn something about yourself and understand, why am I being obsessive over this? And then you're learning new tools again about yourself that you can then apply to other areas of your life later on. Everything that you do in life is really helping you bring new tools, new things that you can use later on in your life that you don't know you're going to need in a few years' time, in a few months' time. But because you're going through this process now, you're stretching, you're growing, you're evolving into the person that you need to be for your future. And the person that you need to be for your future needs to have gone through certain lessons, learned a few different things to be able to be that future version of yourself that's going to have future version of yourself problems and issues that you right now can't currently solve because you haven't learned those lessons yet, right? You cannot possibly do the math exercise of the IB year 13 if you're only in year 6. That's not possible. You have to go through year 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 before you can be able to simply effortlessly flow into the math exercise of year 13. Same thing with manifestation. The last thing is that when your manifestation comes into your life, sink into gratefulness and really spend time thanking the universe for this thing that it was able to bring into your life, this thing that both of you have created together, and really, really spend time into gratitude for this thing. And I really, really did that when I was in the plane. I was spent like at least 20 minutes in gratitude, being super, super like happy and grateful and thankful. And like, kind of like acknowledging that this thing has happened. And I think the more you can be in gratitude and accepting that, small things are happening in your life that you're trying to manifest. And the more you can say thank you, the more the universe can understand, or God or whatever, can be like, you know how to hold something, you know how to be grateful for something. And when they're, it's kind of proof for them to be able to show you and bring you something into your life, because they're like, well, that person is able to hold a smaller thing, and then they can hold a slightly bigger thing, and a slightly bigger, and then they can only bring you the big things when they have proof that you can hold the smaller things gracefully. So be in gratitude when these things happen. It's really, really important. It gives a good signal, energetic signal to the universe that you're receptive to what it is that they brought to you. If you don't go into gratitude, it's almost as if you don't recognize that this is something that you asked for and that actually happened, right? And so really sinking into gratitude when something happens in your life that you were looking for and that you asked for. The same way that if you ask your mother, Mom, can you get me a yogurt from the fridge, and she gives it to you, you're going to say thank you for the yogurt. Same thing with the universe. Thank you for this business class trip. I'm really, really grateful, and I'm super, super thankful that you brought this into my life. Thank you, And so really do that. But yeah, that was the last thing I wanted to say. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. It was really, really special thing that happened to me, and I'm really grateful that I get to share this experience with you guys and share like what I've learned through it. But yeah, so if you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe to my channel, subscribe to the podcast, like this video, share this video, rate the podcast, leave me a comment, a review, just anything. I would be super, super grateful for that. And if you want to find me anywhere else, I have videos on my YouTube channel. I have the singing YouTube channel, my Instagram, where I share quite a bit of reels and like self-development content and things like that on there as well as I'm recently on TikTok trying to understand this whole new platform, which feels a little bit daunting, but we're doing it anyways. But yeah, I'm super, super happy that I was able to share this with you guys. Still can't believe really that this has happened and that this whole thing beautifully happened, fully beautifully orchestrated by the universe. But yeah, I love you guys, and I cannot wait to see you guys next week for the next episode. Bye guys.